of simple random sampling. The first extension we have is this idea of stratified sampling. So for stratified sampling, we're going to begin by taking our entire population and dividing it into groups or strata. So continuing with our example about the school accounts, maybe I can break that into different departments or groups. So sciences, for example, I might stratify or break off some accounts that are in the sciences. I've got physics, biology, chemistry, etc. Maybe I've got some different accounts in the arts. We've got our visual arts and our performing arts, etc. Maybe communications. I have several different accounts there as well. And we could continue thinking of ways to break these into groups. Maybe let's finish with grounds and maintenance. House also has several different accounts. So stratified sampling says break your population into these groups or strata, and we want to make sure that all of these groups get representation. So after we've divided into groups, within each strata, we're going to take our simple random sample. So I might take a simple random sample of 2 accounts from within the sciences, a couple of accounts within arts, a couple within communications, a couple within grounds, and so on. So I've repeated that process of simple random sampling several times, once within each strata, to make sure all groups are equally represented. A student several years ago gave me this idea for remembering simple or stratified sampling. You might want to jot down this reminder: sum from all. Both start with S to help you remember. Stratified is sum from all the groups. Let's contrast that with our second method here, cluster sampling. So cluster sampling is going to start in much the same way. I'll add the aside here. Cluster sampling is not the best technique for this particular example, but we'll roll with it to illustrate the idea. So I've got my sciences, several different accounts. I've got the arts, several different accounts again. And we've got communications with several accounts. And finally, we have grounds with several accounts, and then all the other groups in between. Okay, so you can see it starts off in the same way. We're dividing the population into clusters or strata or subgroups, however you want to word that. This time, instead of making sure there's representation from each of the groups, we're going to take our random sample, our simple random sample of the groups themselves. So I'm going to look at a random sample of all these different departments, and maybe I select sciences. Then I'm going to look at all the subjects within the sciences. Maybe communications was selected, so I look at all the subjects within communications. So all subjects within each cluster or grouping. Another helpful hint here for remembering this, we said stratified was sum from all. Cluster, flip that around, it's all from only some of the groups. All from some. So cluster sampling, it would not be ideal in this setting. Stratified would be more appropriate, so we could have representation from all the groups. Cluster sampling is typically used when data collection involves some kind of physical location. So sampling quadrants in the ocean floor or a forest, you're going to select randomly different areas after you divided it into a grid and look at everything within that area. Or maybe you're doing door-to-door campaigning of some sort, and instead of going to random houses, one here and there, it would be much more efficient to select random neighborhoods and then look at all the houses within each neighborhood. So again, cluster sampling, usually more appropriate when it involves some kind of physical location. And then the last sampling variation here is this idea of systematic sampling. And this one's very different from the other two. You're just going to sample every kth subject. So for example, we might examine every 50th case of product coming off the line for some kind of quality control. You might examine every 10th or survey every 10th person that walks by about their favorite food, whatever. So that's systematic sampling. So you've seen 3 variations on that simple random sampling process.